Got a little closer to me. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Sean, and what's your name?
I don't know.
I'm going to call you Cameron. Why not? That sounds like a fun name, and it could be a boy's name or a girl's name. And today we have something very special planned here in the Swazzle Puppet Studio. You see this little puppet here, let's call him Cameron. We made this puppet, what would you say, about 12 or 13 years ago.
That's right, 13 years ago.
And believe it or not, over that time, we've learned a few things about puppet building. And what we're going to do is we're going to take you apart. No, don't run away. We're going to take you apart, but we're going to put you back together again. But in this video, we're going to take this puppet apart, and we are going to show all of you all of the mistakes that we made those many years ago, and how you can avoid some of those same mistakes. Now, during this process, there might be time for questions, which we will go ahead and request those questions. And we're going to take this puppet apart and see if we can use this as a learning experience. And then in the next video, we're going to put them back together again, using all of the puppet building techniques that we have learned from over a decade of puppet building. So, Puppet Cameron.
Yes.
Are you ready? Be brave, be brave. Come on, everyone, let's cheer him on.
Okay, let's do it,
Let's do it. Well, let's get started. I gotta start with this. No. Just. Oh, no. I don't need that. All right. Puppet Cameron. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start dismantling this puppet, start taking it apart, and let's see how we can improve this puppet. All right, I already feel some mistakes that you guys can't necessarily see, but I know there's some stuff going on which we would not do today. First thing I'm going to do is take off his little costume. Already I noticed a mistake that I would definitely change, which is these arm rods are sewn in. So nowadays what we'll do is we'll pin the arm rods in. And the nice thing about having arm rods that are pinned in is you can remove them and put them back for costume changes. So the first thing I'm going to do, in fact, let me take your glasses off. It's not your stitch, so I'll get to that later. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is remove the stitches in his hand, so we can remove these arm rods. Now, the nice thing about a pin in and out is it sure makes it a lot easier if you needed to swap the rods for any reason. So I'm just splitting this seam here, and we're going to take, let's see, oh, I actually see we put a rod pocket in, so that's good. I was wondering what I would find in here. Okay. So, just getting in there. Okay, it's really stitching there good. I don't know what we were thinking. Never had a rod fall out. All right, so that's good. So the arm rod is put into a rod pocket, so that's good. These rods are very short, so we will be replacing these with longer rods. This is a pretty well-made rod. Copper welding rod, a little bit of gaff tape. You can see how old it is. The gaff tape is just literally just turning to dust. And then a wooden handle, some tape around it, and again this tape just falls off, it's so old. Wooden handle, and we'll be replacing this. This is also tape around, falls off. Now we'll be replacing this with one of our new arm rods. So that comes off. The reason why I'm taking the rods off right now, you see the tape has already come off this one. The reason why I'm taking the rods off is so I can get his costume off. That's one of the advantages of having rods that are easy to come in and out with a pin, is you don't have to do all this nonsense just for a quick costume change, for example. All right, come on, buddy. Okay. Also, I'm noticing something I would do differently is the rod pocket itself is just glued to the hand, but it's not actually attached or stitched to the fur. So I don't actually have access to the rod pocket. So nowadays what I would do is actually would stitch that rod pocket to the fur so it's accessible. All right, so let's pull this out. Well, the whole tape and everything's coming off. I mean, some of this is just age, no matter how well the puppet was made. But again, that's that. We still do this today, a little square at the top. That's nice because you can attach it to your puppet hand, like so, and then it'll have a little wrist motion. Okay, dusty. All right, so it feels like there might be some wire in these hands, although I feel like it's a little short and may have broken. All right. Sweatshirt seems to be a good size for him, so I don't think we need to modify that at all. Sometimes you luck out with kids' clothes. That's funny. We did not put this shirt on him, but that's pretty funny. There's a lot of pins in place here. Let me just unpin all this. Put the sweatshirt aside. Okay. A lot of pins in here. A lot of pins, my goodness. I was concerned about this shirt coming off. All right. So normally what you want is a puppet head that is attached with a safety pin. Now this is not attached to the safety pin. This is actually stitched in place here. So I can't just take the head off for a simple costume change. That's something else we're going to change. We'll swap out this neck sleeve for one of our new neck sleeves, and we'll make sure that you can just pin it in. One of the reasons why you can't pin it is this body's L200, which is another change we would make. Not make the body out of L200, but use a 3/4 inch Scott foam. I'm just cutting off the stitching here so we can get the head removed. All right, head is off. We have a neck sleeve, which is good. I can already see the stitching that we use. We use a different stitch now than that. This was just a straight ahead stitch. And now we use a cross stitch, which has a lot more flex, because right now there's no flex in this, so it could be challenging for people with larger hands. Wow, you can see how much things discolor over time, just exposure to, and use. Wow, the body fur is so brilliant, but yeah, that's what happens. You can see maybe you can't see it on camera, but in person it's very obvious. This is quite a bit dingier than this, just because it's been exposed. Well, let's start with the body. First off, a couple of things. One, we have a single hang on. The arm here is attached through one hole, which is not good because then it can spin and spin and spin. And we also use this nylon, which is strong, but now we prefer to use shoelaces. And it looks like it's just tied in here, which is, tying it is good, but now what we find is using those little latches, backpack sliders, spring-loaded things, much easier. Don't have to worry about fiddling with knots. So let's take this apart. And by the way, a lot of these components we're going to pull apart and use for patterns. However, one thing I'm going to change is this has a cutout. This body was probably patterned after one of our old Avenue Q puppets. So the idea was it would kind of sit like this on your hand. But this cutout is not really needed for an over-the-head puppet. So we will not be doing the cutout. Also, what do we have for arm gaskets? These are plastic. That's pretty good. Thing is, plastic can crack easily, especially as it gets older. So we have shifted to using wood, and look how easy this come out. Also, the glue is quite old. And once this glue gets old, it is easy to come off. They're wood now, And the nice thing about the wood is we can cut them on laser cutter, and cutting these by hand is a pain. All right, so let's take the body apart. This all looks pretty good as far as how it's patterned. When it all gets together, this cutout shape might kind of cause some difficulty with our fur pattern, but we'll figure that out. We might have more of this fur, although we might not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll patch something in. I mean, it's also gonna be covered with a costume, so it's not the worst disaster. So this glued around is pretty much how we do it. But one thing I'm noticing, I mean, because this is an L200 body, there are things you don't need that we will be putting in to the puppet body when it's no longer made out of L200, and that is some Ridgeline that we'll use to give us some support. But the reason why I really favor a body made out of the Scott foam as opposed to L200 is a lot of times with puppets, you want to pin things to the puppets, you want to just, whatever. And this foam, like if you were to pin something to it, like this, and then it's just really easy to just tear out. Whereas if it's a Scott foam, it's not as easy to just tear out like that. So, good for some things. Certain puppet bodies, really large bodies, it works. But, okay, I see another surprise. Now these, it depends on the size of your puppet. Okay, I'm going to pull this fur off and show what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a pretty decent body pattern. And we might go ahead and just use this body pattern. Although I do see a change I would make, which is I don't see much advantage to this being a wraparound. I think what it's actually better for me to do is just bring this shape all the way down. And it'll make it a two-part pattern. Also, I don't see much use in this being two parts back here. I guess there's a little bit of a shape to it, but that's really more being, this is more driving that shape rather than any sort of cutout here. So I might go ahead and make this one piece. So what I noticed is there's Ridgeline in the neck, which for an L200 body really isn't necessary. And we've stopped putting these in our puppet bodies only because it is not flexible and will never change. Unless it's large enough for just about anyone's hand to get through, then you potentially are just putting a restrictor in. So what we've been doing lately is just having it be straight Scott foam, and then as far as any boning, we would go down the spine and down the front so that it doesn't want to collapse this way, and then one around the middle just to keep it, at its widest point. So this is the puppet body, which tomorrow we'll cut apart and pull some patterns from. But this I'm going to set aside because this is going to be useful for the patterning tomorrow. I'm going to attempt to go ahead and use this fur body again tomorrow. I see it is machine stitched very well. Interesting. Yeah, fur is good to machine stitch, especially since you can't see that seam at all. So that's good. Yeah, so we'll see if we can utilize this. Maybe clean it up. We might be able to put it into a little soapy water and get some of that grime off of it. Okay, let's see what we can learn from the hands. So already I know something that's wrong, which is this. Okay, so why is it doing this? I'm guessing this string runs all the way through to the wrist, and there's no stop up here. What we do now is we just tie the shoelace. We use shoelaces now because they're sturdy. Easy to tie and untie. That's what they're made for. But instead of having it tied all the way to the wrist, running through the arm, it just goes here. I remember one time we were building puppets and Patrick was saying to the pup builder, "Oh yeah, we attach the string all the way to the wrist," and she's like, "Why?" "Oh, so the arm doesn't fall off." She's like, "I don't know. I've never seen an arm fall off." So we're like, "Hmm." So we started attaching it up here, and the thing is, once this wooden disc is encased and glued to the foam and encased in fleece, you would have to want to pull it off to do that. So I'm not gonna do it that way. Let's cut it open and see. So looks like this is just kind of gathered at the top, so probably one snip will undo that. Great. Something else I notice on this, and we don't do it this way anymore, which is the hand and the arm are two separate pieces, and they're stitched together. So now, whenever possible, we try to make the arm, fur, and the hand one piece. So I think we might consider repatterning this and not just reusing this piece here. We'll need to check to see if we have some yellow that will work or something we can trim down. This looks like fur that was boiled for texture. So we'll see what we have. Maybe a remnant. If not, we might be using this. But this is also machine stitched. Yeah, that's fine for fur, especially for arms. So that you can see the problem here, when there's a stitch here, this is a point of stress. So it is gonna wanna pull off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and snip that. Let's get this hand separated from the arm. That is old foam in there. Yep. It's brown. Man. Never imagined I would have puppets that were so old. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull the arm off. Okay. So this we may use, but we might use it to pattern as well. So I'm just going to set it aside. Okay. One thing I would do, first of all, is I'd make this arm a lot longer. So we are going to repattern it, and we're going to make fur. Lately, we've been favoring much longer arms, just because you can do more. I mean, it's a cartoon character. Puppets are cartoon characters. And so the longer arm, big hand is, when we make our own patterns, that's what we've been favoring. And we have a arm and a hand that we've used reliably for a while now. And that's kind of been our go-to. The other thing I would do is, okay, this is a cute hand, but for a fur hand, it's pretty small because a lot of this would be lost. I can imagine this being a good hand for fleece covering, but not so good, I would say. Also, I would like to, with a hand like this, I would like to thin up this arm a little bit, just for the visual. I think it looks a little like a kind of weird divot here, whereas if this was, thinner, I think that looks more appealing, right? Got a plastic gasket here, which we're not going to need. I'm just going to take it apart because why not? That glue's actually held pretty well. So you can see, as I mentioned, there is no knot here, so there's no stop. At least if there was a stop here, you could really cinch that arm tight and not, keep pulling and pulling and pulling. Okay. But you know what? You build puppets. When we started building puppets, there was no YouTube. It was just sort of figure it out as you go. So this I'm not going to be using because we're going to be putting on new hands. And so let me just turn this inside out and see how we've done this. Let me see if this is hand stitched or machine stitched. This is hand stitched. So what we like to do now is machine stitch the fingers. And you can always pluck the fur out. The nice thing about machine stitching those fingers is a little faster, but also that machine stitch is not going to come out. And the thing with puppet hands is they get moved and formed and, a lot of stuff happens. So, a hand stitch, you're just asking for it to come undone. And then when you have it separate from here, you're asking for this to come undone. So now we have a pattern that is arm and hand all in one. and it kind of folds in half, and then you just stitch down one side, leave an opening, stitch up the fingers, and then just put everything through. But that's for tomorrow. All right, set this aside. Let's see what we can learn from this. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this arm here. I mean, to give you an idea, this is what like fresh foam looks like. So this is fresh foam here, and you can just see how it just yellows and gets darker and darker brown over the years. And that's just something that happens. Considering its age, it's still pretty pliable and flexible. So at least that's good. All right, cut the wrist here. All right, so we're not going to use this as patterning because we're going to use a new arm pattern that we have found to be successful. And that arm pattern is already programmed into our computer, so we'll be able to laser cut these hands if we have enough 1/2-inch foam. We'll look and see. All right, got a little rod pocket, which is good, but this was glued on the outside. Now what we like to do is sandwich those rod pockets between the foam. Because this could, you know, tweak and tweak and tweak and then come separated, and then it's kind of floating around in there. But if it's sandwiched in the foam, then it makes it a little more hard to just tear out. So let's see. I'm just gonna open this. Okay, something else. As I open his hand up, and again, we're not gonna be using this hand again. We'll make a new one. We got the wire in there, which is good. But this wire is just very, very thin. And we now prefer, it's not broken, which is good. So it's good it didn't break. But we now prefer thicker wire. This is made pretty much the way we make them, armature. But of course, we no longer tie the string to the hand. So we'd go like this, then this would get glued in. Then the rod pocket goes in, then it gets sandwiched together. But that's all for the next video. Okay, so that's that hand. I could take this hand apart, but I think you would find the same treasures inside that. All right, let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about this puppet head. You can't tell, but I can already tell there's a lot of stuff in here. Too much stuff. It's quite thick. Feels like I'm grabbing a hamburger. Doesn't really move, considering what you would hope it would do. It's like, how come I can't move the mouth like I should? And I have some ideas, just by putting my hand inside, what would improve that. So for starters, let's lose his glasses. They're just stitched with a little bit of a fishing line, which is how I would do it anyhow. It's like a little bit of wig tape here to hold the nose. Didn't quite hold, but we'll go ahead and replace that. Maybe put a stitch around the middle, but I usually try not to do that because it could be visible. I'm just pulling this old wig tape off. So, and there's no lenses, just because, I mean, you're just asking for glare. You can certainly put lenses on if that's something that your puppet needs, but people are going to be saying, hey, can you got the glare? I got the glare. All right. Okay. I'm going to, let's investigate his nose. Actually feels pretty good. Interesting. Okay. Pull his nose off here. The nose is made out of fleece. I was going to say it's old fleece, but now look at it, it's not. It's just so worn down that it now looks old. So we might go ahead and replace that with a new piece of fleece and see if we can just still use the shape of the nose. Nose is stitched in place, and for a puppet like this, which is kind of a set character, we would still stitch it in place. If for some reason this was a character like one of our rental puppets and, you know, it needs to be one thing this week and then something else the next week, then we would just pin it in place. Unless it really wasn't being stubborn, they could stitch it. All right. Let's see what's in this nose. Okay, fleece wrap around a shape. I do feel like there's a hard back. Oh, interesting. This is how we do it now. Is this the first time we did it? Who knows? I'm in favor of doing it this way. Well, interestingly, this wood is cracked. We use different wood now, though. But this is how we're doing our noses. This is a balsa wood, which I would not use. Now we have this laser cut wood, which is a mini ply, so we'll be able to cut that off and replace it. But what's nice about having this wooden form is you can really pull it around and it still keeps a shape. If it's just L200, it's pretty much like a marshmallow. I would say if we're trying to get an angled look, I would reconsider the pattern of this and actually, I would say, build the triangle into the pattern. It looks like we may have done that here a little bit, but it could be cleaned up. No, that's just the way it's pulled. Yeah, so what I would do is, this is a very odd shape, I would actually build a little triangle into that pattern, and that'll make it a little more angular. You can kind of see how it's just been stretched over the years into that, but imagine if we just made a cut there and stitched it, you would have that shape naturally. So put this aside. This we'll be able to use again, this L200, and then we'll just put fresh wood on the back, stronger wood, not balsa. You can even see the wood here is bending. Oops, just broke it. Bending because it's, like I said, it's like a balsa wood. Okay, I like these little dot eyes. Okay, they're animal eyes and they're put in with the safety eyes in the back, just through the fur. Okay, interesting. I think what I'm going to do when I do it again is, we can use these same eyes because it's sort of like his look, but I think we're going to instead punch it through a foam as well, so it kind of brings it in a little bit, gives it a little more character. It doesn't look like it's just stuck on top. And getting those eyes out will be a bit of a challenge. Let's take the ears off. Oh, these look pretty good. Maybe I'm not going to take them off. Let's see if we can keep those on for now. I'm also going to keep these brows on for now, just because their placement is good, and it looks like some of these may have been, is it just stitched? Just stitched on, okay. He also has this little chin hair. I think I might actually take that off because I have a thought about how I'm going to change some stitching here. So let's do that. Let's see. We'll take this little scrap off and then we'll put it aside. That's a really nice fur. Anyone who makes puppets over time, you may notice that nice furs come and go. Usually they go. It just seems like the furs they introduce, not to sound like an old curmudgeon, but the furs they introduce nowadays they're not as good. They're more plasticky, they're more shiny, they don't have as much texture and body. All you have to do is pull out your stuffed animals from the 80s and look at that fur quality. It's just like really beautiful. This is stitched on really good for some reason. I guess we didn't want him to lose his chin hair. All right, I'm just using a blade here to loosen this seam. Yeah, this is a really nice fur. All right. And this is the same fur as the eyebrow, just trimmed, which is good. All right. Oh, soul patch there. You can see the back of the weave has all these different colors in it. There's like a blue, a maroon. It's like the Eddie Bauer collection. All right. Okay, what is next? Let me take apart his neck here. All right, so I don't want to do that. Yeah, let me get into his neck. Take that part off. thinking a lot of this fur we're going to be able to just rinse, dry out, and use again. That is the nice thing about using like furs, is ultimately it's just a fur. So you can rinse and then line dry. Don't put it in a washing machine or anything. Where is that seam? The fur is so matted that I can't even really tell where the seam is. It's rather confusing. All right, well, I'll cut from the bottom first. So as I mentioned, this is one way to stitch it on, but we would not use that stitch anymore because it doesn't have any flex to it. The nice thing about a cross stitch is it can expand and contract, which makes it more usable for puppeteers with different hands. And then this neck sleeve is rather short, so we have new neck sleeves that we use that will come all the way down quite a bit further. And that makes it easier for the puppeteer to put the puppet on. They just grab the neck sleeve, and that way you're not really handling, you know, the part of the puppet that everyone's going to see so much. Keeps your grimy fingers off its face and that sort of thing. All right, a lot of stitches. All right, got that free. Let's see if I can figure out how this neck sleeve is stitched. Or is it stitched? Yeah, it is. Okay. It's really matted. Okay. Let me get to it this way. There's a stubborn little seam here. Once I get it started, it'll come undone. There we go. Here we are. Now we'll go. Just had to find where that seam was. That's why, I mean, that's why with a furry puppet, there are times where you can definitely use machine stitching. Because it's very easy to hide. However, I notice in this guy, his chin is machine stitched, and that's one change I'm going to make. When we put them back together again, we're going to make that a hand stitch seam. Because it's sort of visible, and there's, for a furry puppet like this, no reason why you should see a seam down the front. All right. Now with our new Avenue Q puppets, for example, we did machine stitch the fleece. We're recognizing that we're making that for a theater production. So the sight lines are fine. All right, so this is the neck sleeve. The neck, hand stitch in the back. Which is good, it's a good stitch. I would do it like that again. So this piece we'll just clean up, and we'll use this again on this guy. You can just see how grubby puppets get. It's so interesting, just a little bit of use, or a lot of use. The difference between, the area that's not seen compared to the area that is. Also gives them character, which is sort of fun. All right, I'm gonna split this from the back. Okay. I'm just splitting the head seam where it was sewn together. See how far it goes up. How far I need to go up. Okay, that should come off. Yeah, so here are the eyes just attached like animal eyes. I might have to get a plier to take those off. So I see a problem already. Looks like we tried to solve it, but L200, not good for puppet heads. Unless you're just using it for the tiny, tiny crown of the head. The thing is, when the mouth wants to open and close, all that flex that you would normally get if it was falling all the way through basically stops here. So you're restricting and limiting your motion movement. Puppet fuzz. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can unglue this. Taking the be able to clean some of that glue off this first. We can use it again. All right. Let me look at this fur pattern. Yeah, fur pattern is pretty good. Looks like I wouldn't do anything different with it. I'm gonna grab a plier and get these eyes off. These are those safety eyes. Looks like this one's already cracked. That's good. That'll make it easier. So much for safety. All right. Is this also glued on? I don't know what's going on. It looks like there was a little bit of, or perhaps some wig tape on the back. Yeah, okay. Well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to pinch it all the way through and through some foam. So it'll give it a little more depth. Okay. Let's see if this one comes off as easily. That one just cracked. It's already cracked. Just gave up. Hang on. Bring in the big guns. And let's see if I can just pull this off. There we go. All right. I'll pull that eye off. This just has that sticky wig tape on the back. I'm not sure why we did that, but I guess some double reinforcement doesn't hurt anything. But when I put it back on, I'm not gonna do any wig tape there. Why does wig tape stay sticky after all these years? Who knew? I guess if you wanted to wear a wig, it would really keep it in place. We use Topstick brand. Used that for a long time. Seems to really work well. All right, so we will be reusing those. All right, so I'm going to keep the ears on. Ears are a pain to make. They're fine. They're already in place. So you can see after years and years and years of being on that foam form, it still retains some of its shape, which is good. And just goes to show you, like, the more you remove from a puppet, the more flexible it's going to be, especially as we start getting rid of some of these materials like this. Okay, what else do I see? All right, so coming here, all right, you notice we have another ring of boning here in the head. And this also is adding to a restriction in motion, and this is going to come out. We do not put these in the heads anymore. There's just no reason for it. All it does is put something rigid right where you want it to be the most flexible. So less is more, less is more. That's one thing we've learned over the years, less is more. Better just to put a little bump for the performer to put their fingers on, a little piece of foam on top. So that's not gonna go back in. Let me see if it's already better. Yeah, I mean, it already works better. Still, this is the big one. You can see that it's limited because I can't go all the way. It doesn't move all the way back. And actually, you can see a little bit of motion here, which is, that means this motion is actually going all the way to here. which tells you that it wants to move, but it's just being restricted. All right, so now, what else do we have in here? A lot of stuff in here. Okay, neck sleeve. Okay, neck sleeve, glued in. Now, when we really want to make our secure neck sleeves, we put a spandex ring in, which we will do. So it could be glued in, and then that'll secure. Okay, so this will not be needing anymore because we'll put a fresh neck sleeve in. It's also a little small for my taste now. Doesn't feel like that's a good universal fit. And also this particular material is slick, but it doesn't expand. The material we use now has a little bit of stretch. It's more like a stretchy denim, like that they use for their hipster jeans and such. But I'm actually kind of impressed. There's a nice seam on this, where all the frayed edges are pulled in. So it's pretty well made. It's just a little small and not stretchy enough. All right, let's keep digging. All right, I see a wooden pallet, and I see a lot of gack. A lot of gack. I can kind of show you what it looks like, and we'll get to the problem in a second. The first thing I'm gonna do is just pull this mouth out. And one thing I can tell is we glued it in just by pulling it over, and now our preferred method is to cut that little shelf and set the mouth in. And that really adds just a lot more flexibility and stability. This is glued in quite well after all these years, so that's good. Doesn't want to come loose. And with old puppets, the mouth gets a lot of wear and tear, so where you start to see things coming loose, it is in the mouth. This is a wooden pallet, which we actually have been favoring lately. A lot of people say, I want a flexible pallet, but I don't know. That's good for some puppets, but unless you're really going to use that, like that's the character, it has a flexible pallet, then we find that wood is sufficient. I mean, every puppet is different, but this one, there's no reason why this puppet needs a flexible pallet, so it'll have a wooden pallet again. This glue does not want to let go. It may have been re-glued a few times. It's okay, we'll have enough information to... Okay, here's the mouth. Eventually this will be pulled apart. It will create a pattern, but the pattern will not be, it will not involve any L200. It'll just be a straight foam pattern. I can see we tried to make it flexible, but I think our idea was let's make it really durable. But there's always a trade-off. You know, go really durable, and you give up flexibility. But sometimes if you build it for maximum flexibility, it becomes durable because it doesn't take much effort to get it to move. So it's not like stress and strain on the glue or anything like that. Okay. See, we put a little fleece bumper in there, I guess, so people's fingers didn't burst through. But honestly, anything you put in there is just going to be one more restriction for movement. So we do not do that. If it's so uncomfortable, then make it different. I've yet to have someone's fingers burst through a puppet. And also, it's not going to burst through the fur, so things like that, not really needed. Okay, so, seems great in principle. This mouth palette. It's just too much stuff, too much gack. And what's interesting is it is because of the thumb cup here, the way this thumb cup is made, it's actually restricting it, like it stops the mouth from opening. Whereas if I just free my thumb of that, you can see the actual potential this mouth has. Also, the spacing, we have some space between, which is good. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch, and I think we should double that. All right, so I'm gonna take all this gack off. Let's see, first off, ultra suede tongue, that's good. We'll make a new tongue. Stuck on with wig tape, yeah, we'd still do it that way. This kind of a terry cloth. Now we use Ultra Suede for the mouth. Ultra Suede is great, super durable, and well, this is fine, but we just like Ultra Suede. Plus, you have a lot of it. Gaff tape, wood. Yep, we still do that. That's a good way to attach them. But what we wouldn't do is all of this nonsense here. The ball under here to thing. I mean, you know, we might just do like a little bit of a ridge so you can grab your fingers, but no finger strap on top. Instead, what we'll end up doing is probably putting some sort of a brain inside, something that might just kind of go against your wrist, maybe something on the top of your fingers. As little as possible, so you can maximize the flexibility. All right. Okay, so here's the wooden pallet. Those are perfectly decent. Probably just use these same pallets again. No reason to cut a new one. All of this comes off. Leather, no, and it adds all this thickness too. Like every 1/8 of an inch of thickness you're adding, and then there's a lot of freaking glue on that. All right, we were concerned about that coming off, and then this little thing. I mean that's decent, but I'm just gonna take it off, and we'll just add one of our little ridges that we use now, which seems perfectly decent, low profile, just enough to feel like you have a hold on the puppet. You don't need to like do a death grip. And then on the bottom, again, all this adds a lot. So this is kind of good. Now we just make it with wood instead of L200, with this kind of a shape that kind of like gives you a little bit of a something to grab. Cut that off because we're not going to use that. So you can see before we had all this stuff. So we had this, this material, which you're always going to have some material. It's folded, it's here. Then you had this, then you had this. So already, like you have this, you know, 1/2 inch hamburger that you're holding. Whereas if you lose this, now it's just this much more streamlined shape, which means that every time you open, it's going into opening. So this stuff we don't need. Tape we don't need. All right. We'll actually draw the patterns up tomorrow, but I'm gonna cut this guy apart and lay it flat and just kind of show you what it looks like. And by tomorrow, I mean our next video. But I'm gonna just see what happens if we lay this guy flat, how useful of a pattern we have. Seems pretty good. Like I said, we're gonna make this a lot of 3/4 inch foam. And then also by making the yeah, so there's a seam here. I'm gonna cut this too. There's no point in salvaging that little space. All right, seems like I would just take this and just lay this out onto 3/4 inch. We would have a pretty nice pattern. So that's what we'll start with. I was going to say one more thing. By adding a little more depth in this, it will make the mouth a little bigger, so not as shallow. And the more the mouth can come out, the more it wants to move. The shallower it is in the foam, the less movement you have. You know, think of like a, you know, like if it really comes out like this, like pop, pop, pop. All right, so that would be like that. And let me go ahead and, yeah. I know we'll do some of this work tomorrow, but I just want to sort of lay it out and see what it's going to look like. Like I said, I think we can actually, when I cut this apart, you can always make it one piece of the pattern, but if I just draw this down Draw this down, and make this come straight down, and that come straight down. And let's just make that our piece. It's very similar to a body pattern that we're still using today. Like I said, we'll use 3/4 inch soft foam. So that'll be a piece, one piece, and we'll just bring it all the way down to fill in that gap. And then this is like a back piece. And again, this will be brought all the way down to the proper size. And all the pattern making will be another video, but I'm just preparing for that. Tearing it apart. So now, there's this front piece, which is good. We'll have two side pieces that will come down the same distance here. And then we'll have this back piece, which I'm going to make it just one piece of foam, like this, laid flat. We don't need all that. That doesn't give us anything as far as a shape. And then this will come down further so it'll match the front. So this is our body. Put that aside. This is for that. And then what we're going to do to prepare for the next session is we're going to wash these pieces, as I mentioned. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and take this hand apart and let's wash these pieces in case we end up using them, because we can always decide we're not going to use them. But then if they're not clean, then we're sort of like, we can't use them anyway, even if we wanted to. So let's just get that ready. I'm going to take this hand off, like so. Take it off. All right. And so that can be good. And then I'll just pull this off just in case we decide to use them. Be much easier if they're already clean and dry. You can see how mucky this water becomes. It's pretty gross. Pretty gross. All right. I'm going to grab a little bucket, whatever, of water. I'm also going to grab some gloves and a little laundry detergent. If you got something really greasy, you could use like Dawn dish soap, but I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny bit of Woolite in, Woolite Darks. Putting some gloves on. This is going to get pretty icky. Puppet ick. All right. So, let's wash some puppet skin. A little bit of Woolite into a tub of water. Just a drop. Mix it around like so. Warm water, of course. And you can take your icky, mucky puppet skins, put them right into the water, like so. And then agitate them like this. And you can see the water is already turning brown. Ugh. Just keep it moving, just like so. And then, once you've agitated for a certain period of time, you can wring them out and hang them out to dry. All right. And grab another bucket, which will be a rinse bucket. So this water is getting icky. That's the nice thing about this fur. Ooh, it's already looking so much nicer. Nice thing about this fur is it's pretty robust. You know, it wasn't a dyed fur. So just kind of scrubbing it in a few areas. Just kind of work some of the grime and filth out of it. You can see the water started clear. It's not clear anymore. That's just sweat and muck. Dirt and dust and who knows what. This puppet's gotten into some stuff. Alright. Okay, so while I do this, I think we'll get a rinse bucket. And then, if you guys have any questions about anything so far, we'll have a little time to ask some questions. So once I get the rinse bucket out here, we'll be able to answer a few questions. And if you're somehow just tuning in, what are we doing? We're taking a 12 to 13-year-old puppet. We're taking it apart so that you all can learn from some of our past puppet building mistakes and hopefully not make those mistakes. So we got a rinse bucket here. So I'm going to move the wash over here. And here's the rinse. All right. Washing. All right. And you can wring them out and put them in the rinse water. Once it's good and rinsed, you can hang it up to dry. All right, so now that I'm doing this, first of all, look at the difference between the two water buckets. Gross, so gross. Okay. All right, so now that we're doing this, if anyone has any questions about puppet building, go ahead and put them in the chat right now, and I'm going to continue to do this work. And if you have a question, go ahead and ask that question, and I will try and answer them.
So we have some questions going back from the beginning. Somebody asked about the strings we were using. Was this before we used the shoelace method?
Yes, the strings for the arms, the nylon string, is what we used to use before the shoelaces.
And what's the benefit of using a shoelace?
The benefit of using a shoelace is it has that little plastic part that's made to go through the holes in a shoe. So it makes it easier to push it into foam or into a wooden gasket.
What fabric did you use to make this puppet?
So this particular puppet is covered in just a craft fur. I don't know what it's called. It's an older material, yellow craft fur. Looks like it may have been trimmed, or maybe not.
Someone said, any specific reason you stopped using L200 bodies?
Yes. The reason why is the L200 is very inflexible, and it's good for larger puppets, but for smaller puppets, it's just too inflexible. And also, when it comes to pinning the hand and things like that, it's not as robust as the stock foam is.
Someone who missed the first 30 minutes of the program wanted to know, what was the greatest concerns that we mentioned?
So the greatest concerns of this puppet is pretty much it didn't move the way we want it to move. I mean, the way it looks is fine on the outside. I think it's great, and it's probably going to look very similar to that when we're finished. But the truth is, it didn't have as much movement as we would want. A lot of it had to do with the thickness of the mouth palate, the depth of the palate, the L200 head, the L200 body, and the length of the arms. And I think when we get all of that fixed, we're going to have a much more usable, user-friendly puppet.
Someone wants to know, what is the optimal weight of a puppet?
Usually puppets are not very heavy at all. I mean, it really depends on the size of the puppet. I actually don't even know if you put all this stuff together, what a puppet would weigh. But not very much.
When we're shipping puppets out, sometimes a box with packing material and a puppet in it could be 3 pounds.
Yeah, but
that's with
box
shipping
and everything.
material.
Yeah.
Someone says some of the best builders.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you're talking about us. Thank you. But yeah.
Someone says, that same person says, foam breaks down, but how long do you think puppet fleece on on a regularly used puppet under film lights can last?
Fleece puppet can last a long time. The only concern with a fleece puppet is the fleece, especially if it's custom dyed, will fade over time. So it's important to not store them in light. In fact, when we started season 5 and 6 of Crank Yankers, we were given some puppets from the original seasons, and they had been sitting in a window, and you could kind of tell, not kind of tell, it looks like they've been blasted with sunlight. You could tell that it was hit with sunlight, and it had a pretty much faded, one side was totally faded.
Someone wants to know, will you ever cover creating eyelids for spherical eyes? Basically, will you give a demo on how to do eyelids for spherical eyelids for
Sure.
eyes?
Yeah, we'll do eyelids. In fact, we're going to be making some noses and some other things soon. So we'll do videos on all of that. So tune in for that.
That's the questions we have.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for asking the questions. We'll get the drying rack. We'll get these out to dry. I'm just squeezing out the last body here. If anyone has any last minute questions, now's the time. I would say please subscribe to our channel. We do occasional lives like this. We have lots of great shorts going up online. You can also follow Swazzle Puppet Studio on Instagram. We've got some great content there. Lots of behind the scenes stuff where we share, the puppet building techniques and tricks that we've learned over the years. And as you can see, there's still more to learn. I mean, even when you feel like you've reached a level of proficiency, we imagined ourselves to be pretty good puppet builders, 12 years ago, but you still learn stuff. Making puppets for Avenue Q or Kidding or, the Crank Anchor puppets in particular has really taught us a lot. I would say definitely Crank Anchors taught us so much about puppet building. So we hope that you can all benefit from our experience.
We have one last question.
Sure.
And might be a fun way to end it, which is, it's a big question, but I have a thought about how we can answer it, which is, how did you guys break into the business officially?
Well, if you want to hear a little bit of how we broke into the business, check out the Eyes On podcast. It's linked in our Instagram, and as it happens, we did an in-depth interview with our friends at Retrofit Films. These are production friends of ours. We've worked on many projects together. We did the Big Mouth Christmas special with them. We did an Amazon series called Little Big Awesome. We did our own pilot for Disney with them called Huggermucker Pier. And we did project dating back years. Cartoon Network's pilot called Pillywags Mansion. Anyhow, Retrofit Films, we did an in-depth interview with them. And I would suggest you check it out. It's about over 30 minutes. It's called the Eyes On podcast. And we talk about our beginnings in puppetry all the way up into what we're doing right now.
Yep. So follow them on Instagram as well. You'll learn tips and tricks from working professionals in the film industry.
Yes.
All right, great. I think that puts an end to our live.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Our next live, which will go up tomorrow, but depending upon when you're watching this, the next video after this, we're going to take all of these pieces that we have here and we're going to rebuild the yellow Cameron puppet and make him better than ever. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time in the Swazzle Puppet Studio. Goodbye!